Hello children, welcome to our today's history session, lesson number 4. Okay, today we are going to see lesson number 4 of history session. In the history lesson, in the last session we have seen lesson number 3, that was from hunters gatherers to growing crops, means how the people from hunters how they slowly and gradually they became farmers and they started growing crops, they started settling in villages and cities. So, in this lesson we are going to see what books and burial tells us. It means it means we are going to see the oldest book, okay, which is our oldest book, what is the importance of that books, then what do they tell us actually, what are the different types of these books. One of the oldest book is, yes, it is Vedas. Okay, so we are going to learn more about Vedas in this lesson. Again we are going to see what were the words that were used to describe the people in the earlier days. Again we are going to see what do you mean by hymns. Then we are going to see more about aryas, who were aryas. Then megaliths, megaliths means the burial sites. Okay, so we are going to learn more about these burial sites, and one of the famous city, that is Inaugura. We are going to see the video also of this city. So let us start the lesson. Lesson number 4, what books and burials tell us. So children, Vedas, you must have heard the word Vedas, right? What do you mean by Vedas? Vedas, they are the oldest form of our ancient, they are the books, okay, ancient books of India. So Vedas, they are our religious literature, means olden forms of books, Vedas. Okay, so Vedas are our religious literature, they are the oldest books of ancient India. Vedas means knowledge. Okay, what do you mean by Veda? Vedas means knowledge. So these Vedas, actually in the olden days, the sages, they used to teach the Vedas to the students who recited and then passed them to next generation. Means these Vedas, they were not written. Okay, the children who used to go to study to the sages, they do not used to learn and write, they were just taught and recited by the sages, and thus it was passed from one generation to next generation. So what do you mean by Vedas? Vedas are the knowledge and they are our religious literature, religious books, which is one of the oldest book of ancient India. And these Vedas, they were taught by the sages to the students, and they passed these students, they then passed them to next generation. Generation after generation the Vedas was passed. See this picture of Vedas, children. Okay, see how the sages in the olden days, how the students, children, okay, they used to go to the forest to study Vedas from the sages. So in this way the sages, they used to recite the Vedas to these children. So there were 4 types of Vedas. Okay, one was Rigveda. It is the most oldest form of Veda. So these Vedas, they were divided into 4 forms. First is Rigveda, then Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. So what are the 4 types of Vedas? Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. Now we will see, in this lesson we are going to see more about Rigveda. Okay. So what do you mean by Rigveda? Rigveda, it is the oldest form of Veda, which was composed about 3500 years ago. So this Rigveda, it was composed about 3500 years ago. Then this Rigveda, it was divided into 10 books. Okay. So this Rigveda, it consists of 10 books. It includes more than 1000 hymns. So what do you mean by hymns? Hymns means they are the prayers to praise different gods and goddesses. Okay. So this Rigveda, it includes more than 1000 hymns, which were called as Sukta or well said. So these hymns were also called as Sukta or well said. So this Rigveda, it was divided into 10 books, and they were which included 1000 hymns that were called as Sukta or well said. What do you mean by hymns? Hymns are the prayers to praise different gods and goddesses. So 3 gods especially, so that time especially 3 gods were praised. Okay, so these 3 gods which were very important were Agni, Indra and Soma. So, what do you mean by Agni means it is the god of fire. Again Indra means the rain god and Soma it is the plant from which special drink was prepared. So, these three gods were very much popular and they were praised, prayers were done for these three gods. Again the rivers Bias and Satluj were worshipped as goddesses. So, these two rivers Satluj and Bias were worshipped as goddesses. The Rigveda was recited and heard rather than read, unlike our today's books which are written and printed. Means what is the difference between today's books and Rigvedas? So, the main difference was today's books they are written, they are written and printed, but earlier these Vedas they were just recited and they were heard from one generation to another generation. They were just passed from one generation to another generation just by listening and reciting. So, this is the main difference between Vedas and our present books. So, again what are the four types of Vedas? Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. This Rigveda it consists of 10 books and it has more than 1000 hymns. Again hymns means the prayers that are used to praise different gods and goddesses, and three gods especially important were Agni, Indra and Soma, plus the rivers Bias and Satluj were worshipped as goddess. Now, we are going to see what do you mean by hymns. As just I told you, hymns are the prayers to praise different gods. What do you mean by hymns? They are the prayers which we pray to praise the different gods. They were composed by sages. Priests taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence bit by bit with great care. So, these sages they taught the students how to recite, how to memorize each syllable. They used to tell them to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence. So, these children at that time they used to recite each syllable, each word and each sentence bit by bit with great care, and in this way their practice was taken. In this way the sages used to teach the students. Most of them were taught and learnt by men, few were by women. Means most of them at that time were men only, very few women used to go for learning. So, most of them were taught and learnt by men and few were by women. The Rigveda is in old or Vedic Sanskrit, which is different from the Sanskrit that we are learning now. So, this Rigveda it is in the old or Vedic Sanskrit, means this Vedic Sanskrit is little bit different from the Sanskrit which we are learning today. So, this Rigveda it was in old Vedic Sanskrit form, which is little different from the Sanskrit that we are learning today. Now, what are the uses of cattle, horses and chariots at that time? So, there were many prayers in the Rigveda for cattle, horses and chariots. Means in Rigveda there were prayers, praises were there for these cattle also, horses and chariots. Again there were many battles, battles used to fight, battles were fought for land. So, why these battles were, why the people used to battle? So, battles were fought for the land, they used to fight to capture the land, which was an important for growing crops. So, people used to have war, they used to fight with each other to capture the land, which was important for growing crops at that time. So, mainly the battles were fought for capturing the land. Some battles were also fought for water and to capture people. Even that time many battles used to take place, and these battles were mainly to capture the land. Again they also used to battle for water, some battles were fought for water and again to capture the people. Then after battle, what was after battle, if suppose someone lose the battle, someone win the battle, then what do they used to do? Okay. So, the one who has won the battle, that person, okay, that party, that king or that people, the wealth obtained was kept by the leaders, means the one who has won the battle, so whichever wealth they have won, okay, they used to keep, that was kept by the leaders, and some was given to the priest and the rest was distributed to the people, okay, children. So, in the battle whoever won, what they used to do, the whatever wealth they have captured, so that wealth it was kept with themselves, okay, with the leaders, and some of it was distributed to the priest and the rest was distributed among the people. Again, some was kept to perform yajnas or sacrifices in which offerings were made for gods and goddesses. So, in that days even yajnas were done, okay, the yajnas were performed by the people and priests used to do this yajnas. So, in this yajnas what they do, they used to sacrifice, sometimes animals, okay. Why? To just to make the god happy. So, some of the wealth was kept to perform yajnas or sacrifices in which offerings were made for gods and goddesses, means in these sacrifices the people they used to offer something to the god in the name of god, which includes ghee, grain, animals, etc. So, these sacrifices, it includes ghee. In the yajnas what they pour grains, they pour ghee, and even sometimes animals were also used to sacrifice. Most men took part in the wars. They chose leaders who were often brave and skillful warriors. So, whenever there were wars, most of the men used to take part in this war, and among them they used to choose the leader, okay, who was brave and skillful. So, the people whom they choose as the leaders were often very brave and skillful warriors. This is how the yajnas were performed by the priest, okay. Now, we will see what were the words that were used to describe the people, okay. So, in that days we describe the people in terms of the work they do. So, in the olden days they used to describe the people by seeing the nature of the work, what type of work they do. From that work they used to name the people. Again, the language they speak, the place they belong to, then their family background, their communities and cultural practices, means all these depend how they describe the people, means one used to describe the people by looking at the work they do, okay. Then the language they speak, again the place from which they belong, their family, their communities and cultural practices. So, based on all these categories they used to describe the people in the olden days. In Rigveda, two groups who were described in terms of their work were the priest called as Brahmins who perform rituals and the Rajas. So, in Rigveda we can find two groups of people, okay. One is priest and one is Rajas. So, priest, depending upon the type of work, two groups were formed, that is priest and Rajas. So, the priests were called as Brahmins who performed the rituals, and the another word was Rajas. These Rajas were not like kings with empire, okay children. So, these Rajas, how now we see Rajas, whatever we know about the Rajas. So, these Rajas were not like the olden days Rajas, okay. So, the olden days Rajas were not like the kings with empire, means they were not having empire, they were not having palaces, they were not having cities, capitals, and nor they did collected taxes like other Rajas, okay. So, Rajas were not like kings with their empire. They did not have capitals, they did not have cities, palaces, and nor they collected the taxes. Again, two words to describe the people, where or the community as the whole is Jana and Vish. So, these were the two groups of people who were described, and again we will see two words which were used to describe the people. So, that was Jana and another one was Vish. So, Jana, this Jana word, it later became Janapada, and it was derived, Janapada was derived from Jana. So, this Jana is used to describe the people or the community. Means at that time people were usually called as Jana, or the community it was referred as Jana. Like for example, we can say Pura Jana. Now also we say na Pura Janas, apne Pura. So, that Pura Jana, Bharata Jana, these are some examples of Jana. Another word was Vish, and later Vishya was derived from this Vish word. Okay. So, children, which word? So, now in this paragraph what we have studied? We have studied about in Rigveda how two groups of people were, what were the two groups of people called, that is priest called as Brahmins and Rajas, and again we have seen that words that were used to describe the people or community was Jana and Vish. Now, we will see who are aryas. Okay. So, aryas are the people who compose the hymns. Now, what do you mean by hymns? Hymns are the prayers, right? They are the prayers which were used to praise the gods or goddesses. Then who wrote these prayers? So, these prayers, they were written by the people called, a group of people called as aryas. They described the people who did not perform the, so these aryas, what they used to do? They described the people who did not perform the sacrifices and spoke different languages as dasas or dasyus. Okay. So, these aryas, what they did? They described the people who did not perform any sacrifices. Okay. So, that category of people, they called them as dasas or dasyus, and later these dasas came to be known as slaves. Slaves, who were the slaves? Slaves were men and women who were captured in the war. They were treated as the property of their owner. So, who were the slaves? The slaves were the people who were captured in the war, means the people who were defeated in the war. So, these people, they were called as slaves, and they were treated as the property of the owner. The one who has won the war, that person can, he can treat these slaves as his own property. So, these are the aryas. Aryas are the people who compose the hymns. They describe the people who did not perform the sacrifices as dasas, and later these dasas, they became slaves. They were called as slaves, and these slaves were the men or women who were captured in the war. Now, children, we will go to our next topic, that is Megalith. Okay. So, what is this Megalith? What do you mean by Megalith? So, Megalith means burial site. Okay. Burial, where the person after his death, he was buried. So, that sites are called as Megalith. So, now we are going to see more about these burial sites. In Megalith means stone boulders, okay, or big stones that were used to mark the burial sites, which were carefully arranged by the people. So, what do you mean by Megalith? Megalith means a burial site which was arranged carefully with the big stones, like this, like picture I will show you. See this picture, children. Okay, this is a Megalith. Okay, it is a burial site. See this, it was arranged carefully with these big circles and big stones. Okay, these are called as stone boulders. Here the person was buried. Okay, so these are the burial sites. So, Megalith means burial sites, stone boulders or big stones that were used to mark the burial sites. which were carefully arranged by the people. There could be a single stone or even a big stone used to mark the sites, means even single stone was kept as a mark to show that this site is a burial site, or even sometimes big stone was used. So, these are the indications that show the burial site, means if suppose we see a big stone somewhere, it means that site was used as a burial site. All these burials have common features. The dead were buried with pots which were called black and red ware. See children, the dead person, okay, the dead person was buried with the pots and which were called as black and red ware. Also tools and weapons of iron and skeletons of horses, horse equipment and the ornaments of stone and gold were buried with the dead. Means if suppose the person who is dead, if suppose he is a warrior, then what happens after his death, along with his burial, even the skeletons of horses or of his own ornaments or the horse equipments and gold, that things were buried with that warrior. Also the tools and weapons of iron, they were also buried with this dead person. So archaeologists, they suggest, just a minute, I will show you the picture. Okay, it is not there. See children, here is the picture of the person, okay, dead person. With him you can see these pots, okay, black and red ware. So these pots were buried with this person, and if suppose he is a warrior, if he has died in the war, then the skeleton, then the ornaments, gold, silver or equipments of the horses, that were also buried with this person. Archaeologists suggest that there was some difference in the statues among the people who were buried, like some were rich, others were poor, some chiefs and others followers. So archaeologists, after that whatever they have studied, from that they have came to a conclusion that even there was differences in the status, means even the burial sites, okay, there was some differences. If suppose a person who is died, if he was a rich person, that then his burial site was little different from the people who were poor. Some megaliths or the burial spots were meant for certain families. People belonging to the same family were buried in the same place, means some of the burial sites, it was meant for the same family. If a person, if he has died, if a persons of the same family, if they whenever they died, they were buried in the same burial spot. So some megaliths or burial spots were meant for certain families. So people belonging to the same family were buried in the same place. So this is what we have studied children. What do you mean by megalith? Megalith is a burial spot. It used carefully arranged by the people by using the stone. Stone may be big single stone or it may be a big stone. Again the burial sites are different. It was different for the rich people, means by looking at the status, okay, it was different for the rich people. Again the site spots were different for the poor people. And when the person died, even the things belonged to him, whichever things belonged to him, like pots or some equipments or gold, whatever, even that thing was buried with this person. See children, this is a pothole, okay. When a family member died, his body was dispatched in a family through a pothole or a kist. Means from here, this is called a pothole. So whenever a family, this is a megalith, see this stone boulders, okay. So whenever a person died from a family, his body was dispatched from this pothole, okay. This is called as pothole. Some megaliths contain more than one skeleton. They seem to be the grave of one family. Like this here, okay. Same, if a persons belong to the same family, then all the bodies were buried in the same spot. Some megaliths contain more, that's why they contain more than one skeleton. They seem to be, it means that it belongs to the grave of one family. Now, we will see the importance of Inaugura. Okay, what is Inaugura? Inaugura is a village, it is a town situated on the river God, a tributary of Bhima, means in Maharashtra, okay, on the river Bhima, on the river God. God is a tributary of river Bhima. So, this Inaugura, it is situated on this river God. What is the importance of this Inaugura? So, here children, the adults were buried in the ground with the head towards the north. Okay. So, Inaugura, here the burial sites were little different. Here the adults or whoever was died, they were buried in the ground with the head towards the north. Sometimes burials were within the houses, means Inaugura, here the burials, they were buried within the houses. Even inside the house they used to bury the people. Vessels that probably contained food and water were placed with the dead, and the person who was died, with him the vessels containing food and water were placed with the dead. In Inaugura, what were the occupations? Here the seeds of the wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millets, peas and sesame were produced. Then bones of animals like cattle, buffalo, goat, sheep, dog, etc. were found that may have been used as the food, means archaeologists they have found the bones of animals like this cattle, buffalo, goat, which have been used as food by the people of Inaugura. Again these people they used to cultivate rice, wheat, barley, pulses, etc. Then fruits such as ber, amla, jamun and dates were also collected, means archaeologists they have found all these fruits and seeds of these crops and the bones of animals, from which we can come to know that the people they cultivated such and such crops and they used to eat the bones of the animals. So, children, this is what we have seen about Inaugura. I am going to show you a video of Inaugura.
You are already aware of the great civilization of Harappa. But do you know, there was another civilization that grew up in Maharashtra in western India. It is the civilization of Inaugura. It is situated along the right bank of the river God, which is the tributary of river Bhima. Are you aware of the term Chalcolithic? It means the Copper Stone Age. Inaugura was an important town during the Chalcolithic Age. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, rice, barley, millets and different types of pulses, peas and sesame, which indicate that they might have practiced agriculture. There are also evidences that show that fruits such as ber or Indian plum, amla or gooseberry, jamun or black plum, dates and a variety of berries were collected and eaten. Besides these, they might have indulged into animal hunting, as bones of a number of animals, many bearing cut marks that indicate that they may have been used as food, have also been found. Many burials have also been found in Inaugura. Adults were generally laid out straight with head towards the north. Sometimes they were buried inside houses. Probably they believed in afterlife because lots of vessels have been found near the burials. Archaeologists believe that they might have contained food and water. In the courtyard of one of the largest houses at the site, a man was found buried inside a large four-legged clay jar. The body was placed in a cross-legged position. Do you know, a granary has also been found in this house? The estimated population of the settlement was approximately around 1000 people. Around 134 mud houses have been excavated at Inaugura. It seemed that Inaugura was a popular town around that time.
So children, hope you have understood the lesson. In the next session, we will be reading the textbook, we will be reading the lesson. So be ready with the textbook for our next session. Till then, see you, goodbye. Thank you.